My name is Vitaly. So, yeah, I don't know how to start. I have some things. It's stress relief balls. So is there anyone who is really under stress at work? Okay. Oh, I have to be careful. Okay. Someone else? I don't like it. Oh, brilliant. Okay. So here we go. Excellent. So today I want to talk about responsive design. My talk is called New Perspective in Web Design. Actually, I wanted to talk specifically about some interesting, clever responsive design techniques, but then I thought, what the hell? Maybe do something different instead. So, my name is Vitaly. I'm known as the editor-in-chief of Smashing Mag. How many of you know Smashing Magazine? Please keep your hands up. No, please keep your hands up. You're there. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your cooperation. I appreciate it. For those of you who do not know Smashing, it's an online magazine for designers and developers. But this is not the topic of today's talk. So this happened to me yesterday, a couple of days ago. So you can see a glass of wine, I guess. So this is why I entirely changed the slides like yesterday. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, we'll find out soon enough. But I'm not responsible for this, he is. Alright? Okay. So this talk is about new techniques. So I want to talk in the first part, I want to talk about coding techniques, like this weird, crazy CSS, HTML, JavaScript stuff. And then the second part, I'd like to talk more about the UX side. So there is something for everyone. But there is one little downside of this. This is going to take a while. So I'm known for not finishing my talks in time, and this is not going to be an exception. Alright? Are you ready for this?
Yes.
So it's like 1 hour, 20 minutes, according to my timing. It can be more if you keep asking questions. So are you ready for this? Hello? Yeah, okay, let's go. So most importantly, is it's about stuff that actually is implemented and used in real life. So I'm not talking about theoretical approaches, but actually what people do use in practice. So if you think about the web, maybe this is how I see it. It kind of leaves as this wonderful Chrome, not necessarily Google Chrome, a Chrome. It lives in the browser, right? If somebody asks you what the web looks like, you might say, well, something like this. Or maybe this, right? We have lots of wonderful boxes, and what we do all the time is we just move them around, right? We just move them, and then at some point it kind of makes sense, and this is what we call design. We just boxing stuff, right? But maybe this is not how we should see it. So if you think about responsive design, this is probably the image you have in your mind, right? But I have to be responsive as well. Hello? Yeah. Yes, brilliant. Thank you very much. You'll get another ball later on for your stress today. So this is how we see responsive design. But as Tim Brown said, if you think about web design or responsive web design, is it really it? Design for the web is more like visualizing a tesseract. Tesseract is a complex hypercube, right? We build experiences by manipulating their shadows. Ooh. Right? But it kind of makes sense. Are you really happy with the tools you have to build responsive websites? You feel comfortable with everything, including debugging, including wonderful CSS image sprites. Do you like it? Is it the best we can do? Maybe not. So maybe we should see the web like this, right? We have this multi-dimensional complex system, and it's our job to make all these little decisions. These dots are our decisions. There are lots of decisions we have to make for every single project. It's very, very complex. So for me, responsive design is not really just a technique, right? It's kind of approach. It's one of the approaches and one of the tools for this multi-dimensional complex web, right? But it's also, as Vitaly said, it's not just a technique, it's a mindset, right? And it really requires us to rethink and extend how we do things on the web. So I want to just go through a couple of interesting approaches and techniques I hope you will find useful for your projects. And it starts with something that I added just yesterday. So let's see how it goes. Okay? Atomic design. This is how we used to do things. We have a project, right? So we start planning, then we do static wireframes. At some point we do our wonderful BSDs, HTML, CSS, JavaScript at some point, and then we launch the website and we're done, right? Hello? Yes. This is how we used to do stuff. But it doesn't really work, does it, anymore, right? Today it just doesn't work. And there is a reason for that. Clients think this. Sometimes we have research, information architecture, visual interface design, some point CSS, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but what really costs is making the whole thing responsive, right? Well, this is what our clients think. And sometimes they make decisions that are not perfect, maybe. As Greg said, the CMS iOS app is so bad, I took the unprecedented steps of deleting it and reinstalling it just so I could delete it again. Do we want it to happen to our users? Probably not, right? But the thing is, responsive design is kind of this, it's thing. It's weird. We don't really know how to deal with it. It's kind of strange. It's complicated. Is it? Is it complicated? How many of you do responsive design by default? Do you have a new project? Okay. How many of you do not do responsive design by default? You just made me so sad. Okay, we'll talk about it later. But I don't think it has to be that complicated. So as I just said, if you're used to designing fixed with layout, it's going to be really, really hard to get your head around designing and building in a fluid way at first. Once you overcome the initial struggle of adapting to a new process, designing and building responsive sites doesn't have to take any longer or cost any more money. And it was exactly like this for us when we designed Smashing Man. So I think we can make it work. It's not that complicated. We just need to find the right approach to do it, right? So we saw that this workflow approach doesn't work. We have too many devices, we have too many screen users, we just can't make it work. But we do something different. In 1961, Paul Rand got a phone call from this company called Westinghouse, and they wanted to have a new design, a new logo design, right? So he could have just started drawing sketches, which is what he did, of course, but he was thinking beyond that. So he would go and look at all the different contexts and areas where this logo could be used. Packaging design, it could be on logos, it could be on cars, it could be like symbols in booklets and stuff like that. It could be everywhere, right? So he was thinking beyond just having a simple logo, right? He was trying to design a system. And this is actually very similar to what Microsoft.com did with their recent redesign. Maybe some of you have heard this story, but I'll just repeat it shortly. Microsoft.com redesigned, big responsive redesign, but what they did essentially, they built it up as a system, right? So as they were building it, they were not thinking, okay, this is the layout we have to build. Instead, they were thinking, okay, we have this component, we have this component, we have these components. So the placement of these components was actually defined by the design of the components themselves, right? So they were building modules instead of designing layouts, which is a big, big difference. So Dave Rupert, one of the leading engineers behind redesign, said, well, on Microsoft.com, the homepage is comprised of Lego-like building blocks. Blocks that are designed to be combined together, right? And so they also said, today, the deliverables could look a lot like fully functional Vita Bootstrap style systems, right? Which are custom tailored for your client needs. So you can think about it as tiny Bootstrap for every client. You know Bootstrap? Who knows Bootstrap? Who uses Bootstrap? Who doesn't use Bootstrap? Who doesn't care anymore? Oh, ooh, 5, 6, ooh, we need to talk. So, you know Bootstrap. So the idea is, instead of delivering just wonderful BSDs, we could deliver stuff like that, right? Again, delivering the system instead of just having mockup. But it's kind of a lot of work, right? You have to think about so many different things. All the different components like flexible grid, typography, navigation, accessible form controls, accessible form controls, carousels, tables, accordance, medially, dropdowns, pagination, data tables, buttons, icon fonts. We also have to think about all the strategies, like what do we do with responsive images, responsive typography, accessibility, localization, performance, interaction, responsive advertising is a big deal, right? And all the different layouts that have to be put in place as well. Because we have homepage, subpage, article, products, sign up, checkout. It's a lot of work. So no wonder that most clients think that responsive design is expensive. It involves a lot of work. We just need to have a system. So one of the approaches for this is, well, what was mentioned today already, is Bradford's atomic design, which is essentially a very, very simple concept. How many of you are familiar with it? 2.5? Not 2.3. Okay. So atomic design is simple. Here's the idea. Essentially, when you start building a new website, what you start with is building atoms. So you have atoms, molecules, organisms, templates, and pages. And essentially what you do is you start with atoms, then you kind of build from the atoms, you build molecules, from the molecules you build organisms, and at some point you build templates out of them, and then you build pages. So atoms could be the simplest building blocks of our website, right? Label, input, button. They just, it's kind of the common blocks that we have on the web, right? But if we combine them, this is what we get, right? This is what we get. This is the first molecule that we have in here, right? But then we say, okay, so we can combine label, input, and button, have our search, okay? Then we can combine together all these different molecules, we can create this kind of organism, right? Which is a header, has some navigation, logotype. This is what we call an organism, right? And at some point, we kind of need to break the medium and go into this area of HTML, CSS prototypes. And this is what we do with templates, right? Essentially, it doesn't have real content. It's just a template layout of the page. And then, this is the last instance of it. We kind of put real content, right? We put the images, we put the content, we put the videos, and so on. So this is our working prototype, right? So we go all this way from atoms to molecules to organisms to templates to pages, which is the final result. What we show to the client could be this, or this, or this, just to give them an idea or an impression of what it's going to look like. And as Brett said, I think it's really clever to think about it this way. Atomic design gives us the ability to traverse from abstract, these atoms that we have, to concrete. So we can create systems that promote consistency and scalability, and we can assemble rather than deconstruct, right? Because when we build this first, we have to kind of deconstruct it and rebuild it in HTML, which doesn't really, it's not the right way, maybe, right? So we have this obvious relationship between modules, but otherwise, just imagine you have your PSD, then you coded it, but then you need to make a change. So you have to actually go to the code and understand, okay, so these are the relationships we have. These are the elements that are connected in a way. So if I change this, I have to change this as well. But now, if you have this kind of system with atoms, you're building on top of each other, so the relationships are obvious. Molecules are built of atoms, right? There is no way around, right? It kind of makes sense. It's nice. And you can use everything you build along the way all the time. So you can use atoms as references. This could be our pattern library, right? You can use pages to review with clients. And you can use the rest just for building HTML, CSS later on, from prototypes to the real product, which is nice. So the pattern library could serve as a final deliverable, right? And it's kind of nice. Have you ever tried to give this to the client instead of a PSD? It's kind of a set of different elements that you would have in the page, kind of conveys the atmosphere or the general feeling that the website will have. And once we have all these atoms, right, there's no way to make it wrong. Because atoms will build molecules, there is no way around it. There is no way to make an error, right? Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Really? Okay. So maybe you could just try to speak to the client and say, hey, this is what it's going to feel like, instead of this is what it's going to look like. It's a big difference. And then Mo has been working on this project, where essentially he was giving to his client this kind of thing, right? Different hardware effects. This is not the website itself, right? This is not a page, right? It's just a set of elements grouped together to convey a certain meaning. But maybe you can do something different. So, sorry, by the way, this is kind of complicated thinking system about it, to think about responsive design projects, right? But Brett built Pattern Lab, which actually is a huge set of components, huge set of atoms that you can just design in the browser, that can produce molecules and organisms and pages and templates out of it in the browser, right? So it's really nice. Just check it out. But we're thinking about systems in a very narrow way. So we're thinking about systems as kind of UI components very often, or layouts. Could be very, very different. So the 7 Signals, they posted an interesting article about visual exploration behind the new redesign. So their system was entirely different. Do you see this wonderful wave in here? So they actually spent a lot of time thinking about their brand identity and designing a system for their brand identity, right? So they would explore, okay, we kind of have the signal versus noise block. This is the title. How can we represent it? How can we create kind of a system where members of the system would look different for every different kind of post? So we might have a design article, it should have a different wave. It could have a business article, it could have a different wave as well. So they started analyzing, they started looking at waveforms in physics, and they came up with this system. So for design, they would use this kind of pattern, right, for waves. For programming, they would use this because it kind of states with elegance. For business, an exchange is more important, apparently. For writing, it's all about clarity. So sysadmins and DevOps, structure and ease. Support, it's about understanding, as described by one of their members, right? It's a different kind of system, but it still is a system. Or another example, Dean Labs, they redesigned Globe and Mail, which is one of the newspapers, business newspapers in Canada. So they had a lot of data, and had a lot of visual data and infographics on the site. So what they did is, they designed a visual design system for their graphs and data, right? So you could have, so essentially they built the whole library, massive library, where they actually say, okay, hey editors, you can use our tools that we built, and can create all this kind of graphics and systems, elements, to make all the layout and design feel more, comprehensive first, but also coherent, right? So they designed this, for example. They also took a lot, okay, what do we do with charts, right? With all the different resolutions as well. How do we do with block quotes, for example? How do we deal with stocks? How do we deal with type? How do we deal with tables? How do we deal with graphs? How do we deal with SVG, right? All this kind of thing, and then build a huge system out of it. But we can go in further, because it's not just design itself. We're thinking about web design maybe way too much. So what about this kind of system? How many of you know this? Oh, this is going to change your life forever. Seriously. Are you ready for this? Hello? Yes. So I met these wonderful guys from No Domain in Barcelona, and they're doing graphic motion design work. And they were asked by a company, Canal 3XL channel from France, they were asked to design a new brand identity for them. So they're thinking about doing this traditional stuff, like just designing a logo and see how it works and what kind of intro they could have. But instead, in the end, they decided to create a really unique system. So they went ahead to the libraries and to the channel office, and they collected all the footage from VHS and all CDs and DVDs, and they started studying this kind of artifacts. Things like real pixels that you find on your screen, right? From all footage. where you have really blurry things and stuff like that, which is kind of mistakes, right? Mistakes displayed on screen. And then turn it into an identity. So I just wanted to show you a short video. It has nothing to do with responsive design, but I had wine yesterday, so I have to show it. Okay? Are you ready? Yes. Can we turn up the volume, please? And maybe tune on the mic. So the interesting bit about it, what do you think the deliverable was, the final deliverable? It wasn't a move file, it was a pattern of After Effects files, which they sent to the channel, and thus to kind of create a system that would generate this, oh, I don't want to see me. Sorry. They would create kind of randomly generate all these effects on live in real time, so that every intro would be different, just based on randomly pulling these effects from the library, which I think is pretty cool. Has nothing to do with responsive design at all. Sorry. All right. So I think it's just interesting to think about the systems in a different way. So, but now let's finally get down to the actual responsive design. So there are a couple of issues in responsive design that have to be solved, and I think that most of you have found your way to solve it. But it's nice to kind of have a nice overview of what's going on, what people are using over there, right? So resolution independence is a big deal, obviously. We can't just deliver all kind of different images, different devices all the time. So the moment the new iPad comes out, or the new iPad comes out, we can't just create a new image and insert it in a new image like in 4 times Retina over there. So we need future-proof solutions. So when it comes to little icons, we kind of have a solution, right? We can use SVG or icon fonts, it's easy. In the past, we used PNG sprites, for example, to display this, right? So we create a wonderful image sprite in PNG, and then we have an unordered list, then the list items, then we just use background position, the background image to pull it and display it, right? How many of you know it? Everybody knows it, right? So we can do the same with SVG. It's not a big difference. Essentially, we have almost the same markup. The only difference is the background size property. But obviously, we have an SVG file. We just need to give it dimensions. Then once we did that, this is done, right? So SVG is easy. But we can do better than that. Because obviously, you don't like CSS sprites, do you? Do you?
No.
No. Nobody likes to update CSS sprites. So here's the interesting idea, SVG stacks. The idea is, well, SVG is text files markup, right? So we can have different elements in it. So here's what we are going to do. Instead of producing a sprite, we're going to have a stack with SVG. So that we have our G element, which is group, for chart. We have a plus icon, then we have more icons if we want to. What we can do in CSS, in SVG we can say, okay, by default, please do not display this icon. We have a class icon in here, right? So we don't display it by default, but then we're displaying it on target. And then in our CSS file, which is defined background image, the URL of the SVG with all the files, all the icons, then we just use target or hashtag chart, and then because it's on target, it is being displayed. Hello? This is so cool! No, seriously. Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, it's awesome. It is awesome, seriously, I'm not kidding. It's really cool. So, it's really amazing, actually. You can use this SVG stacker to actually produce this kind of files right away. It's also very easy. SVG is kind of, it has good support. Chrome, Safari, Opera, Firefox, i9. You know who doesn't support SVG, of course. For legacy browsers and Android 2.3, which is still a big deal, and Opera Mini, we need a PNG fallback with conditional comments. But there is also a nice little hack that we can use as well, which is this one. As it turns out, well, this happens only after a couple of years. People find this out really seriously. So essentially, if you have a normal SVG file and you have image tag inside, and then you have xlink href pointing to the SVG file, and the fallback as source pointing to the PNG file. Are you with me? Yes. Then the browsers, the good browsers who understand SVG will just go and grab the xlink and they will be happy. The browsers who do not understand SVG will just ignore SVG tag. They will understand or kind of perceive image as image tag, EMG tag. They will just grab the PNG. You're not excited at all. What's wrong with you? I mean, seriously, this is pretty cool. It's just easy, right? It's pretty cool. Of course, there's another option we can use, which is icon fonts. And you know how icon fonts work? We have the wonderful bulletproof index with a smiley, for example. Then we define all the different formats. At the same time, our markup is very simple. We define class icon share, for example, for the share icon. And then we go and for the icon class, we define a font family, which is icon font in this case. And then we're using before pseudo element to push the content, the glyph that we want to display, right? You're familiar with it?
Yeah.
Yes, brilliant. So this is easy. We can get even better than that by using HTML5 data attributes, where essentially we say, okay, data icon, we can define it in the markup, and then essentially what we have in CSS is just before pseudo class, current property, we just grab the data icon and display it, right? It's also very easy, right? We can get better than that, much better, and this is amazing. This is going to change your life forever. Second time today. So, this is crazy. So, we're used to just producing icons and just putting them on the web. But what if we generated icons on the fly? So let's say we have a wonderful cloud icon, a wonderful sun icon. We might want to apply gradient or shadow to the cloud icon. Might want to apply gradient or shadow to the sun icon. Then we could have this wonderful icon just generated from the fly. So the idea is to split apart the components of your image with your multicolor vector, and then add each element to the icon font, and then stack them to create a new icon. Oh, finally! So this is pretty cool. The markup is kind of, but it works! So maybe it's fine after all. Maybe you can improve it, right? It's kind of hacky, but yeah, it works. So there's even more you can do with that. Just going with this article is really pretty cool. So fonts is kind of the second option for resolution independence, right? You have lots of web fonts, really huge, massive, open source fonts like N-Type and Font Awesome, which are awesome and free and awesome. We have excellent support for icon fonts. We have Opera Mini. Honestly, Opera Mini doesn't support anything, so I'm sorry for this. And of course Android 2.1, but yeah. Well, the thing is, what we need, of course, need to take care of is make sure that we do not grab the whole library of this, the whole icon font library, which usually has maybe 300, 400 icons. We probably use maybe 5, 10, 20, right? So we can build custom small bundles using tools like Fontello. So essentially you can just grab the icons you need, they will generate CSS and font files for you. You can even, I think, you can actually use Icon to design your own fonts, icons, then embed them in the icon font that you generate, which is really neat. It can get better than that. Third time today, seriously, who knows this? Oh, this is awesome. I enjoy it, I really do. So, So here's the deal. Of course, if you want to have SVG or iPhone fonts, it's kind of, yeah, so we go to a wonderful image editing program, software, and then we need to draw SVG or change SVG, and then we need to export it, we need to generate the font files. It's kind of, yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. So we can do better than that, of course. So this guy, you know, there are people out there who are really crazy, who spend like really nights thinking about optimizing stuff. This is one of the guys. I really don't know how he did it. He used 7 or 8 terminal tools, to achieve one single thing. The moment he changes a pixel in his sketch application, it generates and live reloads the browser window with the font and everything, and SVG exported with all the fallbacks. Okay? He just throws a pixel in here, on his external display, he sees the result in the browser right away. Hello! Seriously, this is pretty cool, actually. It's pretty nice, really. So, okay, essentially when it comes to icons, yeah, it's responsive icons, it's easy. We have it done. Resolution dependence, it's easy. What do we do with images? Everybody's asking what do we do with images. So, there is this thing called compressive images. How many of you know it? Well, you don't count. Okay, so number 4. So let's go. The thing is that it turns out to display photos properly on high pixel density displays, we don't really need high resolution images. Yeah, but you don't know how it works. So it's voodoo magic. You probably don't believe me. And you shouldn't, but you might want to. So here's the idea. If a JPEG has relatively small dimensions, we can use this little workaround to keep the file size small. Given 2 identical images that are displayed at the same size on the website, one can be dramatically smaller than the other one in file size if it's highly compressed and dramatically larger in dimensions than it is displayed in. What? Curious. So let's say we have this wonderful image. It's displayed in 600 times 400 pixels. Has the worst JPEG quality you can get, right? The worst quality you can get. It's displayed now in 600 times 400, and its file size is 7K. It looks pretty bad to you, I hope. Brilliant. So what if we make it smaller and display it in 300 times 200? So we have the same file size, obviously, right? But now the question is, what happens if we compare this image to the original image in the same dimension? It's 300 times 200. It's 80% JPEG quality, it's pretty solid. It's 21K. This one is for 7K. Most people won't notice the difference. Most people out there will not notice the difference. The only problem is, of course, if somebody decides to save your image, they will get this crappy high-resolution image, right? But and also, if you have lots of images on your site, it's kind of a problem because resizing has to be done by the browser, right? But it works. I mean, you save 66% of your image size, but you get it. It's crazy. This guy, again, one of those crazy guys, right? From Netherlands, he ran lots of tests on all different devices. He also analyzed all kinds of different images, and he noticed there is no difference. Whatever image you're using, it will work all the time. You can check this out if you like. But actually, do you really care if this image is high resolution image or not? Do you? I mean, maybe we're concerned a bit too much about the whole retina display, retina image quality. Maybe sometimes it's not necessary. To be honest, for me, personally, this is 8K too much on this page. Seriously. Even although we compress it like hell, right? So maybe it's even too much, but maybe it's not necessary. We know that we should be using progressive JPEGs, right? We have 2 kinds of images on the web, right? We have the ones where the image is loading, right? And then it's getting better. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yes. So we should be aiming to display images right away, even if they're in bad quality, right? And then kind of, as image is being loaded, you can see it in better fidelity, which is nice, right? There is one little problem though. As far as I understood, if you're using progressive JPEGs, it works on desktop, but it doesn't really work on mobile, because if it has to improve the image quality, it has to send more data to the towers. So it's kind of better, but it's still not perfect, right? But it's still something we can work with. So retina images, this is solved, seriously. So if we want to decide, okay, these are the devices that should get retina images, these are the devices that should not get retina image, it's easy. For text, it's easy. For canvas, it's easy. For SVG, it's easy. For font icons, we just put 2 icons in the icon file. And then we need to follow a certain pattern, and then it will be done. And then, of course, for PNG, GIF, JPEG, well, we need to use min resolution pixel density ratio in CSS, and it works. So it's solved too. It's not that difficult, right? Of course, the best way is to optimize images, because images are huge on the web. You can use tiny PNG for PNG. We can use JPEG mini for JPEG. Works wonderfully. If you really care about terminal and image optimization and responsive design and the web itself, and you do not want to destroy the web, then you should use this, which is a command line tool to optimize images. So essentially, you can just put all the images from your project in a folder, then you can run the script and it optimizes all the images right away for you. This is nice, like combining all tiny PNG and JPEG mini, all the other tools in one, which is really nice. You just need to know terminal, which is cute, actually, sometimes. There are lots of tools which can help you even further. So BBC is known for putting lots of really good stuff out there for responsive images and for responsive designs in general. So they released the tool they call Wrath. I have no idea what it was. Doesn't matter. So the fair point is, let's say you have a big project and you are going to run an international site, an international version, and at the same time you might want to run a Romanian version or Russian version or whatever, right? You might look out, okay, what are the common problems that kind of can occur or will occur? And how would you actually detect them, right? If you think about localization, well, you need to look really carefully, look really close at what's going to happen in response to design. So what they did is, they run a diff, image diff, with screenshots across all the different localization areas of the site. And then once you have a difference, because essentially it's the same CSS, right? But if you have a difference, a significant difference in layout, then it will be highlighted as blue, right? So sometimes it can be really helpful, especially if you have a really big, massive site, where you don't know exactly what every part of the site does, so it could be really helpful. And also they generate all the screenshots, so you can compare them later on, which is also nice. But of course, this is what we want, right? Well, not the dog, but we do want to be able to deliver different images to different devices. And we can't. Well, it's not yet, right? We just can't yet. There are workarounds, of course, and the most popular one is picture fill by Scott Gell from Vitaly Group. There's also Tyson Matinix branch of it. But essentially, picture fill is a JavaScript polyfill for responsive images that we want to have, right? Also, just recently, National Geographic, they released an open source project on GitHub, which is a different, not a branch, but a different solution for the same problem. They have a different markup, but they're using a picture element instead of diffs that Scott uses. So it's kind of bulletproof, so if picture element gets into the browsers at some point, it will keep working, which is nice, right? And also BBC does it as well. What's wrong with those people? Like BBC is doing The Guardian, National Geographic, kind of weird. But it's nice, of course, it's wonderful. So Tyson's branch actually gives you more control about how images are displayed, what parts of images are being displayed. So you can load images before the entire DOM is ready, or after the rest of the page loads, stuff like that. You can kind of disable swapping of images if you want to in certain conditions, which is really nice. And the worst part is, this article was published in 2012, right, in November 2012, has 4 comments on it.
4 comments, right? It's brilliant and it has 4 comments. Please leave a comment today if you can. It's just really, really cool. Yeah, so there are people out there who are really experimenting being on the edge. And there are things that are not really practical, but they kind of give you a feeling of what it could be, what it might, in which direction it might go in the future. So there is a clown car technique with SVG for responsive images. And the idea here is to use media queries within SVG to serve right raster images without double markup. So this is what your HTML markup would look like. HTML markup, did I say that? What your HTML would look like, right? This is easy. Now the thing is, the interesting part is SVG itself. This is how the SVG looks like. Have a group element, have 4 different images, small, medium, big and huge, and then we use xlink href to refer to the images, right? It kind of works, but of course we need, well, we can use display none, display block, but it would be better to actually use background images, of course, but then it would work without images being downloaded first. But, so essentially what we would have is something like that, right? We'd have media queries with SVG, where background images are defined, right? But it's all encapsulated in one image file, SVG file, which is pretty cool. And it doesn't quite work. So you can't just use an image tag, you need to use object tag for you know who, right? There are 2 main benefits though, right? And the main benefit is, this is a really big deal actually. These media queries within SVG are based on the parent element in which SVG is contained, not the viewport, not the screen width of the browser. Do you know why it's a big deal? It means that media queries refer not to the screen width that we have, but to the parent element in which it lives. So we could just grab this, let's say we have an image or a media query for an element that lives in the sidebar, right? So instead of defining media query 40 AM for the whole layout, we'd say, okay, I want to have media query for this parent. It could be 6 AM, right? So now, later on, we can then move this, take this element, this parent element, put it anywhere on the site. It will still work. We don't need to change media queries. Yes? No? It's really a big deal. And this is where the idea of element media queries comes in, right? The idea of having this modular component media queries that rely or refer not to the screen width, but to the width of the parent, which is really nice. And of course, all image options are kind of encapsulated in one SVG file, which is also quite nice. The thing is, SVG is not supported in and Android 2.3 and Opera Mini. So this is fine. So the clown car technique, please check out the GitHub by Estelle, GitHub repo by Estelle. It's really nice. So responsive, so resolution dependence is kind of okay. We can just mark it, it's done. Images, yeah, we can find workarounds for this, that's fine. Of course, we want to think about performance. Responsive design is all about performance, right? So we need to think about conditional loading as well to improve performance. So the idea is essentially, well, we're using progressive enhancement. So we should ask browsers to load assets progressively, ensuring we have a fast and functional core experience, right? So we start with like pretty much like what Vitaly said. We start with something really, really small, and then as we know that we can load more, we just keep loading more stuff. And we know that the browser or device can use it, so we keep loading until we're finished, right? But the core experience should be there all the time, really, really quickly. And responsive design, say, is not much different than really state-of-the-art progressive enhancement with focus on performance. So this is what The Guardian does, and I think that most of you actually might have heard of it already. So they consider 3 different types of page content. The Guardian is a big newspaper website, a news website, so they really have to deliver news quickly, right? So they have core content, which is essential HTML and CSS. It's a usable, non-JavaScript enhanced experience, right? Second step, they have enhancement, which is where JavaScript comes in, using geolocation, touch, enhanced CSS, but also web fonts, okay, and other widgets they have. And then you have leftovers. Of course, stuff that nobody needs but has to be in there, like analytics, advertising, weather, whatever, third-party content, right? Stuff that most people don't really need, but stuff that has to be in there. And the idea is, okay, so we need to make sure that the core content is delivered as fast as possible. Do you see the images somewhere in there? So where are the images? In the core content, enhancement, or leftovers? What do you think? I think core content, enhancement, leftovers. Ooh, interesting. That's interesting. So the idea is the following. They load only HTML and CSS first. The images are considered to be an enhancement, just like web fonts. So it's all loaded and DOM content ready. And then after that, once it's finished, they're loading leftovers like advertising and stuff like that, which is really, really nice. And you can say, well, JavaScript, why do we need to care about JavaScript anyway? Everybody has JavaScript these days. But as Vitaly said and Bruce kind of said, I think, kind of, in a different way, like, doesn't it? Well, not everybody has JavaScript. JavaScript has to be rendered, has to be executed, has to be downloaded. And your users are non-JavaScript on mobile or on desktop while they are downloading your JavaScript. And if you have all the wonderful JavaScript libraries combined, as Bruce suggested, well, it might take a while, right? So many users will be non-JavaScript while it's being downloaded. So what they do is, this is what they load as a core experience, text, HTML, and CSS. And this is what the markup for images looks like. Very much again what Vitaly suggested. So we don't have the image tag. Ooh, right? Instead, we're using divs. I'm using the HTML5 data attribute. So we know, okay, at some point when the core content is there, this is the point when it starts loading images. But after core content is being displayed. Okay? So it's kind of hacky, but this is what many companies, many big sites actually do. What we can also do, of course, what we should do, is to load JavaScript asynchronously. So instead of this, which is a traditional water flow that we have in browsers, HTML first, CSS later on, then JavaScript, you can use async attribute and put the scripts at the bottom and the footer. So HTML is downloaded right away. Then CSS and JavaScript are kind of, the browser decides himself or herself when to download JavaScript, right? So now the interesting thing is, okay, but how do you actually decide when to load more stuff, right? So how do you decide what's a bad browser, what's a good browser, right? So the Guardian has this wonderful feature or function called is modern browser, right? If they detected that a modern browser is available, they would load enhanced JavaScript to load more content, right? Otherwise, they just deliver the core experience. Now, what could it be, right? We could use sniffing, user agent sniffing, but we shouldn't, right? We can use server-side device detection, and some companies do, but it's not bulletproof. It really is not what you actually want to do. We can use client-side feature detection as well. And what they do is, they're using these 3 lines of JavaScript to separate browsers into 2 groups. HTML5 browsers and HTML4 browsers, right? They check which query is selected in document, local storage in window, and advanced listener in window as well. And if all these conditions meet, then it's an HTML5 browser, so more JavaScript is loaded. So you can think of it as a replacement for Modernize in some cases. 3 lines of code, right? This is really, really smart. And they have, well, they did a lot of testing. Because they know exactly what browsers are capable, what browsers are not capable, right? It's really nice. We can also, of course, use Ajax include pattern. By Scott from Friedman Group. This Scott is unbelievable. He's like, I hate him. He's so good, unbelievable. Ajax include pattern, where essentially you have progressive loading all the time, starting from the core experience, loading more stuff as as loading progresses, which is also quite nice and easy. So you can start, for example, for weather in small screens. You could have something like this for weather, right? And then if you have more space available, which doesn't mean that you're on better connection, of course, well, you could load more stuff, right? It's really easy to implement, really easy. So conditional loading is actually not very hard. So I'm going to show you something that you will not like. Okay? And I saw people coming to me and asking me to not mention it ever again. Please. Or sometimes without please, actually. But I'm standing right here and I'm going to show it to you. I hope it's not live stream. No, it's not. So here's the idea. This is what Gmail does. Of course, we have the idea of conditional loading, but we can do more than that. We can have lazy loading as well. So the idea is to let browsers download all of the JavaScript right away, but evaluate it on demand, only when users need a particular feature. So you know where it's heading. Much of the JavaScript is being downloaded right away, but it's commented out. And when needed, it's uncommented and evaluated. Ooh, I see them. I feel the vibe. Yeah, you start hating it. That's good. Okay, so you can say, "Ooh, this is not cool. This is not best practice." Well, in Gmail's case, they started with 200K of JavaScript, which produced 2,600 milliseconds of page load, and they were able to reduce it to 240 milliseconds. I'm sorry, folks, if it works for Gmail, maybe it will work for you too. Okay? So this is how it works. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but you have the lazy script, but you have to make sure that you strip out the comments first. That makes sense, right? And then what you do is, well, you go to the element, you strip out comments, then you evaluate it. Once you know that somebody clicked on the element, for example, right? With the onClick event. Ooh, okay. And they say, what would they say? Evil is evil, right? Yes? Agree? Who agrees? Okay. Oh, sorry. Damn it. This has come up. So it's not quite evil. It just misunderstood. Okay. So I really highly recommend you to go to check this article. It's like, okay, evil is, well, you wouldn't use evil in every project, but sometimes it does make sense. And you might think there are security implications of using it. There is no real case where it has produced a huge amount of problem that you would this way. So you might want to use it. And also we can use it for the wonderful Twitter widgets and Facebook buttons and stuff like that, right? How many of you love Facebook buttons in terms of performance? Dislike Facebook buttons because of performance? Okay, that's nice. So we can do the same thing, right? We can load the social widgets only when users actually want to use them, right? So we load small social icons, PNGs or SVGs, or anyone. And then we load these widgets on click, right? Facebook button alone weighs 120K and produces 4 HTTP requests. This is what keeps me awake at night. Okay? 120K and 4 HTTP requests. This is not good, right? So there are libraries for that. Essentially, this is what it looks like the original state is, the default state where you just display icons. Once the icons are clicked on, well, then you're loading Twitter and Facebook buttons, and people are kind of okay with it, I think, I hope. It's a delay, of course, but the page loads faster. There's also a library for that. Doesn't have to be a jQuery library, but there's a jQuery library for that. And social count is another one. It's just performs a bit better. Okay. Oh, this is exciting. So when you think about interfaces, sometimes we think, yeah, this is kind of the thing that just exists, lives out there. And then we roll out changes at some point, and this is a new version of our interface. And then we roll out changes again, this is a new version of our interface, right? But it's always kind of, it goes through the stages, but very, well, fixed stages. There is no continuum in there. So here's the idea. Well, when it comes, sorry, I mixed it up. Of course, we can consider different options right now, and there are different techniques we can use. And what we eventually want to have is, of course, increasing performance. But performance, when you think about performance, it's like you have this weird dark people in the corner with Linux kernels, right? We don't want to talk to them. They're just doing the magic, voodoo stuff, performance optimization, after we did our job, right? And this is kind of it, right? So we think about performance in terms of technology, right? But it's not just that. Performance is also about how users perceive it. So there's a study by Steven Shaw that said that if you want to create a noticeable improvement in performance, you have to improve the performance by 20%. 20%. Unless you're really, really bad at what you do, increasing stuff by 20% for performance is really, really hard. I mean, seriously, you can't just do that. Even if you come up with clever ideas, improving performance by 20% is really hard. So what if we just fake it? We can fake performance by being a bit optimistic about users' next steps. Okay? So we perform actions optimistically. Okay? So for example, when a user has to upload an image, right? We can say, hey, here you go, you're done. And if he's not done or something happened, we just pop up a message saying, hey, something went wrong. But we can pretend that it works right away. We can just do that, I think. We can also adapt to prefetch content. This is also, again, something Vitaly said. We can kind of reprioritize loading based on users' actions. We can say, hey, you've been doing this, so you probably are going to do this, so we just start preloading JavaScript for you in the background. Okay? We can move bits around when nobody's watching, like keeping people entertained. So, for example, there's a wonderful idea. There's a banking website in the US. And what they do is they have a wonderful checkout form, and you need to submit PDFs with signatures and stuff. So in the very last step, they ask you to tell a little story about your favorite movie character. Hello? Online banking? Hello? Movie character? And the reason why they're doing it is because the PDF files are usually so big, it takes a lot of time to download them, to upload them, right? Especially if you're not in a really good connection. So while PDFs are being uploaded, they just keep people, busy for a while. Okay? But the interesting thing is that they're using this data later on to randomly design gravitas and avatars based on the preferences of a movie character, of that person, which is kind of nice. It's not like they're treating people, they're just making the experience a bit better, which is really, really nice, right? So we can just keep users busy while boring stuff happens. Okay? So here's what we could do. Hugo Boss does it, so maybe we could do it as well. So in the beginning, we go to the site, and at some point you're on the product page. So we just load a bit of JavaScript to show this button on page load. This button says write review, okay? So now that the mouse is within 200 pixels of the button, in the radius of 200 pixels, let's start loading the JavaScript for writing a review. So then, when the user clicks on the button, it's there right away. Okay? Does it make sense? Hello? Yeah. It's interesting, right? But you think it's done? No, we can do more than that. There is an interesting paper on faster progress bars manipulating perceived duration with visual augmentations by Chris Harris and John Crow, Scott Hudson from Human-Computer Interaction Institute in Carnegie Mellon University. They ran a long, huge study on how different progress bars are perceived. Okay? So they compared them, and they asked people what feels better, what feels faster. And it turned out that some progress bars feel faster than others. So there is the optimal stuff, which is a backwards moving and accelerating real progress bar, which makes the load time appear 11% faster than a solid color bar. Okay? This this one. So if you want to increase your performance by 11% without doing anything, this is the way to go. And it's not that easy, not difficult to implement, okay? And the thing is, I'm just joking. No, I'm not. There is a library for that. A non-scopic progress bar featuring realistic trickle animations to convince your users that something is happening. Okay? So, this is kind of interesting, I would say. Okay? You might want to consider it. Okay? But of course, we don't want to just do trickery, we do want to do some real performance optimization as well. This is where we can use HTML5 link refreshing. How many of you know about it? Some of you? Okay. So, sorry. Essentially, you can tell the browser, hey, while the user is being on this page, please start preloading this page. Okay? Because he might, maybe, he will visit this page later on. So what you can do is, you can say, okay, I know that this article consists of 3 parts, so you can just put link rel next, ref to HTML for the second part, and then while the person is reading the first part, the second part is being preloaded. Okay? And it has a really good support, except, you know who, again? It has a really good support. And this article was published in 2010, and back then it was kind of, well, you couldn't use it really, because most browsers didn't use it, but right now it's really, really good, well implemented. So you can use it. There's also a really nice article on Google Chromium project about DNS perfection, which is important in mobile, right? So you can resolve DNS. If you have lots of external links, you can resolve DNS while the person visiting a site is actually reading the article, for example, which is really cool. And it all happens in the background, which is really nice. But again, as I said, performance is often considered to be a technical thing, while we might want to consider performance and treat it as an essential design feature. And it's a big, big difference, because we don't think and talk about performance that much as designers. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's just frozen. Oh, that's interesting. Well, my performance is... Okay, let's see. Can we go to the next one? Okay. So this is where the idea of performance budgets comes to it. Because we often consider performance to be an afterthought. What if we move it around and start thinking about performance right away before we start thinking about design problems, design decisions? So the idea is to include performance in briefs or project documents. And the way you would do it is you would set a budget on your site, right? Again, like Vitaly did, for example, where you say, okay, I want the site to load under 2.6 seconds on my edge connection, on any edge connection, more or less, right? And this alone, this fact alone, will define many decisions that you will make in your design process later on. Because you have to be really careful about, do you add carousel? Well, you should. If you do add carousel, well, here's your performance here. So you're exceeding your budget, and you can do that, right? It's really helpful to make certain decisions, you know, to make every design and build decision go for this aspect of performance, something that has consequence, which is really nice. And Tim Kadek wrote this article about setting a performance budget, and I see more and more companies actually doing it. Like, for example, ClearLeft. They also published a really nice case study about how they built it and how they used it to really make sure that the site loads really, really fast first. This is the main concern, right? And of course, you know, we need to think about testing. And testing is kind of, yeah, you need so many devices, you need to sync it, and you need to maintain your library of devices. But there is one little thing that I always recommend people to do. Please go to a forest of your choice once every month for 1 hour and test your wonderful websites how they perform in the forest. Okay? This is the best simulation of most connections, like average connections in the world ever. Okay? And it doesn't cost anything. You can take whatever device you like. Maybe a smartphone would be better, because otherwise you would freeze to death. But it's really nice. And I highly recommend every developer doing it, right? So we should simulate these networks quick, slow, and unstable networks at least, it can be a really strong argument in design decisions. Because as we know, jQuery and many huge JavaScript libraries, they take time on mobile. They need to be, there is this huge delay, latency, and stuff like that. So it's really, really important to test. And make sure that you do not include these huge libraries by default. So there is slowing. Like in the past, in the 90s, we used to use tools to kind of increase bandwidth, to make them cache and optimize bandwidth. Now we're using things to slow things down. It's kind of cute. So you can use slowing, where you can define, okay, this is my 56K iPhone LTE. I can just simulate networks in my browser. Or you can use throttle. I can also introduce latency and delay if you know what network you're working with, right? But there are also tools like Device Anywhere by Nokia, and there is also a library by Samsung, where you can go on the site, you can register as a developer there, and then you can get access, remote access to all the different devices they have, well, not all of them, probably, but the main devices they have, and do real-time testing, and kind of see not just a generated preview, but actually see a video of how it's being displayed on those devices, right? Like there is Device Anywhere, Samsung has the same thing. You just need to look for it, okay? Now comes the interface part I talked about. So we often see interfaces kind of this fixed thing that changes incrementally, but not continually. So here's an idea. Your proficiency in a product will decay over time without usage. Okay? As such, this proficiency is reflected in experience decays over time. This decays should be avoided at all costs. Now it's a very interesting thing to think about interfaces this way. Experience decays is a very interesting term. So that means you are, let's say you signed up in a new tool, new web service, you start using the interface, and at some point you drop off, right? This time between when you drop off and come back again is what's called the experience decay. So if this time is too long, you start forgetting how the interface works, right? This is where experience decay comes into place. So usability should be seen maybe not as something that exists on its own, but as a moving target. So of course we know that users get smarter at the product as they keep using it, but maybe the interface should adjust as well as users keep using it, right? To make sure that users feel more efficient, more confident, more comfortable using it. So the idea is to change the interface as user moves through the different stages of proficiency when using your interface. Make sense? Okay. So here's how it would look like. Let's say we have a button. Okay. This is what everybody would see. Okay. This is kind of the standard default view. Level 0, I would say, okay? Then as the users keep using this interface, it could just fade away slowly, okay? People who know what this button does and keep using the interface every single day, they will know what the button is. They will know what the sign stands for, and they will know what this sign stands for, right? But if at some point the user who used to use the service a lot doesn't come back to the site, right? You could regress back to this level and to this level. To kind of increase the learning curve, to improve the learning curve, okay? So we need to track users, again, as Vitaly said, which is really interesting, introduces complexity, of course, but it's a really different way of thinking about interfaces. So for big features that we want to track, we have to observe and track usage, right, by users of the interface. So we need to create this kind of proficiency profiles, so that every button, every element in the interface, we need to have different versions, right? And then we need to kind of select or assign these versions of the interfaces depending on the user's proficiency, okay? So we would assign proficiency level to each feature, we'll design different options, right? If a user doesn't use a feature for a long time, the UI regresses back to level 1 or level 0, the default view. And if the user keeps using a feature more, we can introduce rewards, or just keep increasing these levels in advanced mode. Okay? So there's an interesting article about this on progressive reduction layer walls, and they also have a nice case study about how they implemented it in responsive design, which I highly recommend reading as well. It's really interesting way of thinking about responsive design a bit differently. So, are you tired? No? Yes? Oh, I have a relief ball for you. I promised to give it this one. I have stickers, like hard sticker. You can take it. So we have some stuff to do now. I don't know how much time it will take. I just go. Doesn't matter. You can leave whenever you feel like. I don't care. So I'd like to go through a couple of responsive design patterns. This is what I kind of personally, so I go through lots of responsive designs every single day just because I have to. It's kind of part of my job. Not really. So I like to observe things and then put them in the library and see what people are doing. So essentially my theory is, if a design problem can be solved responsibly, eventually it will be solved responsibly. There are many design problems that kind of exist. You can think about all kinds of things. You can think about responsive maps, responsive graphs, responsive tables, responsive accordions, whatever. And people are doing it, they have to do it, right? Because they have projects to finish. So you can see lots of new interesting patterns appearing all the time. So we know this, right? Who likes tables on mobile? Anyone? Nobody? They kind of suck, right? Either you see way too much, so it's really hard to navigate, or you can't see anything, so you need to zoom in all the time. It's lovely. Well, we can do better than that. So here's an idea for that. Let's say you have a really large, complex system, table, sorry. So there's lots of data. Sorry. As you notice, you have one little display toggle over here, right? But as you go down, as you go, so you reduce the screen width, you don't see that many columns, but the user can actually select what kind of columns he or she wants to see, right? So it's okay to not be able to see everything as long as you can actually select what you want to see. It's just a bit of JavaScript on top of what you usually have. Really nice. Okay. Calendars, yeah, it's not that difficult either. Essentially it's a table, right? So we can use ellipses in order to reduce the number of text, number of characters, and then as we go further down, then essentially what we end up with is what is also quite, fine is okay, just a list of dates, right? This is accessible, it works just fine. It's also progressive enhancement. That's easy, okay? We can also think a bit more creatively about what we do. Like for example, if you want to have nice responsive navigation, sometimes we would use off-canvas navigation, we would use the hamburger icon, you know what I mean? Why is it called hamburger? I don't know. So this is kind of the standard, right? But we can do something more creative. For example, here we have the pull down for navigation bar. So you can actually pull it down with your fingers, and then you see the navigation on your screen, which is kind of nice, if you think about it. It's not a standard way of doing this, but it's kind of nice. Multi-level menus? Sure, of course. So we click on the button, and we can select one of the options, kind of drop down, right? Then we can kind of zoom in, zoom out experience, which also works fine on mobile. It's JavaScript, no jQuery, just JavaScript, so it's fine, as long as we have a wonderful fallback. What about graphs? Well, how would you display this kind of map on a small screen? Okay, so this is a site of traders, and they want to have different housing projects, and they wanted to show them as a graph on the site. So on the desktop view and large view, it has this bar on the right side, right, where they show kind of the overall data about it. They have filters, so you can select different categories for housing projects. You can also click on specific state and then get data about it, right? Now the interesting thing is, okay, so what would happen? So what happens when we go down? Okay. So as you go down, you'll notice a couple of things happening. So first of all, this bar on this side just drops down. So it's not available on tablet or on the medium-sized view, right? So I'm not sure if it's perfect or not, but they have they've given the priority to the result they have, and they show the stats in the end of the page just before the footer, which is kind of okay. You can still access the map. It's just SVG is responsive, right? And then at some point, because they can't display the map effectively, they're turning to this drop-down. Okay? You can still select the state you are interested in, then you can get all the information right away as well. This is an interesting way of thinking about graphs, right? Accessible, again, progressively enhanced. I like that. So what about maps? Responsive maps? How do we do that? It's iframes, right? Well, it's just the same way you do videos. You know the splitting bottom hack with intrinsic ratio? This is how you do it with wireframes as well. You just make sure that the ratio is the same in the container, right? And this kind of works. It doesn't matter what kind of device you have, what kind of screen resolution you have, it just works, okay? It's also quite easy to implement. What about something like image grid? Like you have a huge team page where you want to show members of your team. So this is the desktop experience you have, right? You get information about the person working there. Now the interesting thing, what should happen is you go down again, right? The image kind of adjusts first, and at some point, there's a major shift, a major change, which is this. So instead of having the text on the top, you have it kind of sliding up from the bottom on the mobile view, right? Which is kind of nice, it's interesting. But they had to do something obviously to show this data. So they decided to do this. But also if you go further down, and then you have this kind of huge box, right? But it doesn't respond only to horizontal media queries, it also responds to vertical media queries. So if you say you have a really small view, this block is getting small as well. Yes. Okay? So this is very nice. Like it's a complex problem they had to solve at some point. This is how they solved it. And it's really interesting. So it's the same as timelines. I can do it all day long, right? I have time. So vertical timelines, how would we do this? The same story, the same game again, right? How would you do it? Well, you have to linearize it at some point. First of all, we can play with type, okay? So just a safe bit of space. And at some point, we turn a vertical view in a horizontal view. Okay? This is also quite clever, actually. Web forms. Oh, web forms on mobile. I can show you just here. Who likes typing stuff on mobile? Like sliding up you need to leave now. Like sliding up keyboards and stuff, this is just terrible, right? Well, Typeform wants to reinvent the form. Because answering questions online doesn't have to be boring. Okay, let's try to convince us, okay? So we go on this page, bookstore coffee. So this is what a web form experience looks like, okay? You can use your keyboard. Essentially you see one input field at a time. You just type your stuff. You can use your keyboard shortcuts A, B, C, D to select what you like. You can also yes and no, it's yes and no. Right? You can also tab if you want to. But you have this one field experience at a time, right? And you can use OK and enter and keyboard. And it's kind of fun, it's okay really. I don't mind filling in these forms. I didn't really mind it, so I went on and decided to do another one. Okay? So here's a medical report form. Like medical report form, hello. Okay? So you can select the patient using your keys again on keyboard. And it's really quick. You don't have this nasty radio buttons or drop-down buttons or this kind of stuff. It's just quick. It's nice, actually. Okay? So the problem is, of course, it doesn't quite work on mobile, because then you have keyboard sliding up and sliding down again all the time, because you have one input field at a time. But you still can do something with it. There's lots of stuff that you can use, and there's this responsive website by Brett Frost, which collects all the different patterns, which I highly recommend you go and see and check for yourself. And it's really, really good. But you know, really, when it comes to responsive design, there are no problems that are unsolvable, right? When it comes to performance, whatever you're talking about, be it performance, be it written images, be it conditional loading, it's all more or less solved. It's not that hard. It really isn't. So the last bit, and then I will leave it to you, is the delightful user experience. And I have to show it to you, and I really hope that it's not going to be put live, online ever. Do we have any lawyers in here? Not even one? Are we sure? We better are sure. So, okay, everything I'm going to say now is a playing act. I don't mean it. Okay, just to be on the safe side. But actually, I do mean it. So, of course, it's okay to have a wonderful responsive experience, but we can do a bit more than that. And we talked about embedding personality in design, so I don't want to go into this whole thing. But just being great isn't good enough anymore, right? You really need to make sure that you people see you, right? You have to be different. So being friendly and personal, everybody does that. It's not good enough. But we can use this kind of small kindnesses to make the experience really rich and really memorable. So are you ready for this? Because this is a big deal. So we are doing smashing shop redesign at the moment. We're kind of introducing little tricks and kindnesses all over the place. And we're thinking about, so okay, how do we make sure that people actually keep coming back to the shop? Well, obviously we want to sell products. So that for every potential negative experience, we're going to provide reassurance, solutions, and rewards. So here's a couple of ideas. So some people, in our usability test, we found out that some people are actually concerned if our books will get delivered to their countries, because they're living in remote countries. So we detect each country and reassure them if we do international shipping to this country or not. Okay? We always show only input error fields and never start that it's correct. It's been typed in correctly, sorry. Okay, please don't tell anyone. Please don't read it. If we actually measure how much time a person spends in our checkout mobile, and the person spends more than 45 seconds, we give a little discount just to make sure that the person keeps going to finish the process. Maybe in some point they think, if I wait a bit longer, maybe I get more. But this is the only discount we give, okay? We will change it so that people, after finishing the checkout, doesn't make sense. Yeah, whatever. Okay? So there's a common issue where we have credit card declined. This is kind of, you can't do anything, right? So credit card is declined, what do you do? So we provide alternate payment methods. Also, if we have somebody who bought a really big stock of books, then we provide an extra discount for the next purchase. And also, if we have a really massive one, like if you order a massive number of books tomorrow, I will personally send you a handwritten thank you note, I promise, by the way. But you have to buy a lot, okay? So this is kind of just to give you a little idea about what we're going to. And of course, we might want to ask for the favorite movie character, and then design gravators in the shop, in the dashboard, based on these preferences, based on this personal profile. So the reason why I'm showing you this is because of this. Sorry. Oh. Do you want me to keep going? They want me to go sleep. Let's see if it works. Yes. Good. I have 50 slides to go, so it's fine. Yeah. Wonderful. So, Ryanair. Let's talk about Ryanair. So, do you use Ryanair? Come on, you have to be honest now. Okay, how many of you enjoyed the delightful experience of Ryanair? How many of you did not enjoy the delightful experience of Ryanair? How many of you will still enjoy the delightful experience of Friedman? Okay. So, I'm sorry, I just have to check. Yes, it's correct. So, I really hate Ryanair. I really do. So, I made it my personal lifetime achievement to make them go down, to break them down, to break them apart. If I achieve it in my lifetime experience, in my lifetime, I will be a really, really happy person. Seriously. So I was thinking really carefully about how I can do this. And there is one reason why I actually wanted to do it, and this is this. I just leave it to you to read. So right in Exhibit A, I looked at my fare yesterday. It was total 123 pounds. I returned today, and fare is 237 pounds. I flushed my cookies. The fare is back to 123. Oh, this is nice. This is what delightful experience is all about, right? When I think about Ryanair, I think about this. Okay? So I think about pay. But the problem is, Ryanair delivers kind of value to us, which is why we're using it. Okay? The value that it delivers is more than the pain that we have to endure. So the question is, can we beat that? And maybe we can. So if we provide the same value, but also provide this kind of delightful user experience that we know from the wonderful sites like Mailchimp and so on, right? So what if we had provided not only the value itself, but also wonderful delightful experience that we could have, right? Because actually, I don't know, can you see it or not? Well, this is where we want to be, right? We know where Ryanair is, don't we? Okay? Maybe somewhere here, hopefully at some point somewhere here. Okay? But this is what we want to achieve, right? But the key is to have a great, authentic, and human personality. This is something I really strongly believe in. And the reason why I believe in it is Friedman. So how many of you are familiar with Friedman? Okay? So Friedman is like the best friend I ever had, really. It's so friendly, it's unbelievable. So I wanted to book a flight from Frankfurt to Berlin. So you can say, okay, I'm going to depart this day, but maybe plus minus 2 days, it depends. So just give me the best fare I can get, right? So I'm flexible, okay? That's nice. But, I have to show it to you. It's so cool. But they have the wonderful agony index, right? They can sort the results, not only by price, but by agony, okay? They can say, oh, you know, we know where you've been, we know how often you're flying, we know what you like, we know what you don't like, so maybe you don't want to spend 2.5 hours at this airport because it doesn't have Wi-Fi, right? So let's just go another one, so it will take a bit longer, or maybe be more expensive, because they sort results by agony, which is really amazing. And then also, they actually changed the interface recently, which is a shame. I really loved it. They also have you can also select hotels, right? So you can sort hotels by price, quality, distance, and ecstasy. Seriously, ecstasy. So maybe I want to have the best experience in my life. Maybe I want to have a casino, be, I don't know, a whiskey bar with some delicate wines, I don't know. So they can actually offer ecstasy hotels for me, which is amazing. And also Voxcore, which is also cool. If they know that you want to, to go jogging or running, it's also kind of nice, right? Just like really, I asked someone like Friedman, it's like a friend. I can call him or actually send him a message and then they can recommend the best thing for me, which is really cool. And also, just a couple of weeks ago, I received this wonderful email. You know what? Now is the best time to book Thanksgiving travel. Okay? Friedman did some research and found out that booking your Thanksgiving flight before Labor Day could save you a boatload of money. Check out these prices. This is amazing. It's like really the best friend I've ever had. It's really, really amazing. Right? And the problem is, I would pay them money. They just don't want it. It's free. How sad is that? Right? I think right now they introduced some premium features or something, and I'm totally into it, right? But I wanted to pay like a year ago and I couldn't, right? So, but this is something we could do, right? And to be honest, I just want to leave you with it. When a customer says the product is too expensive, what it really means, what he or she really, what it really means, is that you haven't done a good enough job of convincing the customer that its value outweighs its price. And I don't know who said that, but it's really so true. So I see many companies are struggling with convincing people that this price is the best, this is the best value you can get. But it's more about just being who you are, and just being honest, like, I'm crazy over here, right? I'm like totally crazy, I'm running out of time, I don't care. But this is just who I am. I can change it. Seriously. So maybe we should just be who we are. It should be good enough. So conclusion, I do have an extra bonus part if you want to, but we don't have to go there. How many of you know what this is? Okay. Yes, so this is a golden Voyager. This is the label that was records that was sent out in space in 70s, I think, early 70s or late 60s, to the outer space, right? To be discovered by aliens, or maybe not be discovered by aliens, so that aliens, when they discover it, kind of have an idea of what the humans were or are like, probably were like, okay? So the interesting thing about it, I was really stunned when I found out about this first time, because somebody must have gone to somebody, to a designer, and say, you know what, we need you to design a system that will kind of provide some insights about humanity on this little label, record. It will be sent out into space for centuries to be seen by aliens, and we need you to convey this information in the most meaningful and precise way. Okay? Somebody had to come up with this visual language or idea of understanding, of showing what the Earth actually is, what the human race is. I mean, this is a task, right? And I don't want you to go ahead and produce websites for aliens. This is not going to happen, I think. But maybe by kind of sticking to what responsive design is and what the web actually is, like this wonderful chaotic medium which is extremely versatile and rich and totally unpredictable. Maybe we can just make the best out of it for everyone. Who knows, maybe books. Right? So we have books, doesn't matter. Thank you.
They have a secret, and I know it.
Of course.
So, questions? Just a second.
I have to hijack you again, sorry.
Okay.
So, if you look carefully under your seats, you might find something, or not. If you do find something, this is the gift for you. From Gabi and us and everybody else.
So who got something from
Anyone?
Well, I know 7 of you now. Let's see.
5.
Just 5. Okay.
So here somebody got a book.
Who got the book?
Oh, come on, show
So raise your hands to see if you also. Some of you received the book from
Brilliant. Yeah, so also I got some stickers and I don't know. Yeah, we have some for trainings and stuff, we have books and stuff. Yeah. I do have another bonus section if you're interested. I'm just saying.
So questions?
No, that's fine.
So,
Okay, one over there in the back.
It's about responsive images. Okay.
What time the beer going to be served?
So, sorry?
No, I just assumed the beer time.
You told about SVG, that's SmartWeb activity. Why didn't you told us that they support JavaScript?
Well,
You don't use it?
No.
SVG with JavaScript?
well, I don't use JavaScript in SVG. You can use, well, it makes sense, but it's markup. But I never thought about it, to be honest.
They can support JavaScript.
That's interesting. No, seriously, it's interesting.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't be more helpful than that.
Another question about web fonts. WebKit support font color. You can use gradient. You don't have to use the icon stack.
Well, depends on, of course, if you want to have icons as well, you can apply gradients, so you can do whatever you like with it.
Yeah, just for WebKit.
Just what?
WebKit. WebKit Chrome.
No, it's not just WebKit.
Just WebKit supports gradients for web fonts.
Oh, Bruce? The only WebKit supports gradients for web fonts? Okay. Well, you're too smart for me, I'm sorry. We will have to talk, I need to hire you.
I used it on my beta website.
Okay, cool, thank you. I didn't know that. Oh.
Any other smartass in the room?
Yes, I'd just like to point out that Opera really does support SVG.